Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, this is the final day of the 50th Parliament, and it is only 51 days until New Zealanders will decide who they want to take this country forward. The sorts of things that New Zealanders are considering, Mr Speaker, is who can they trust? Who can best manage the government's finances? Who has the best plan to help families to get ahead? Who do they want as Prime Minister? Mr Speaker, I want to reflect the comments that the Honourable Bill English made when referring to our Prime Minister, the Right Honourable John Key. And much has been said of the company he's kept over the last few years in terms of world leaders. But, Mr Speaker, the measure of the man, the measure of the leader, is the person he is each and every day with each and every New Zealander that he comes in contact with.
That's right.
Whether you're at a field days meeting, whether you're opening the velodrome with the Royals, whether he's on a marae in Tokoroa. The response to our Prime Minister is overwhelming. And that, Mr Speaker, is what New Zealanders are looking for in terms of leading this country forward.
That's right.
Mr Speaker, I'm enormously proud to be the senior whip of this stunning national caucus. This is a caucus that is working for New Zealand. We work hand in hand with our communities. We are positive, we are aspirational, and we know where we are going. Mr Speaker, if you look at some of our priorities, we've been very clear all of the time that our focus has been on to responsibly manage the government's finances, to build a more competitive and productive economy, to deliver better public services, and for those in Christchurch and Canterbury to rebuild their city and their region. And it's clear, Mr Speaker, that our plan is working. The government is growing, real jobs are being created, and wages are going up. But, Mr Speaker, the most important thing is actually the amount of confidence. Consumer confidence is rising, business confidence is rising. And that is really the sort of thing you trust when you're out listening to your constituents, visiting local businesses, when they are talking about the fact that they are confident in the direction that this government is taking them. And that's the real measure of our success. Mr Speaker, if you look at the achievements under the Honourable Stephen Joyce leading our economic development program, the 6 documents, the 6 areas in our business growth agenda are detailed, they are specific, and we are reporting on progress. Whether it's in export markets, innovation, skilled and safe workplaces, natural resources, capital markets and infrastructure. This is a government that is progressing so many areas because we recognise there is not one single thing that will fix some of the challenges that we inherited. If I just take one, Mr Speaker, in terms of infrastructure, the Waikato Expressway, and I know that my fellow Waikato MPs are also delighted when you see the progress every time you drive down that stretch of the Waikato. It was set as a road of national significance to be completed within 10 years. And, Mr Speaker, if I look at the section in my electorate alone, the Cambridge section, that's been planned for over 60 years.
How long?
The community wanted that 60 years ago, and this is a government that's delivering it. And, Mr Speaker, if you look at the industries that are important in my electorate and across New Zealand, forestry, farming, tourism, that road, that single road that will carve off 35 minutes from the journey from Bombay to Tiro, will have such a significant and lasting economic impact. I can't begin to do its credit in this short address.
That's right.
But, Mr Speaker, when you are in your community and you are talking to mums on the side of the netball court, or you bump into people in the supermarket, in your ordinary life as a Kiwi, the things that people say that matter most, in addition to the economy, is education, health and law and order.
That's right.
And, Mr Speaker, it is undeniable and you cannot refute the record that this government has achieved in its first 6 years in those areas. If you look at education, so ably led by the Honourable Hekia Parata, more children in early childhood education. We are lifting academic achievement in our schools. And not only are we doing it in our schools, we are actually tackling and taking on and producing results in the very communities that need it most. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud when I read articles in the New Zealand Gazette, Education Gazette, that profile schools in my electorate like Tokoroa High School. But that's only one of many. That is only one of many schools up and down this country who are absolutely transforming their students' lives. And that is coming from the dedication of their principal, of their board of trustees, of their teachers and of their parents. And that is every single school. But it comes from the leadership, it comes from direction that is offered by our minister. In health, every single family knows how important health is. If you've got a child, if you've got a parent, if you've got a grandparent, if you need hospital attention, you want it, and you want it soon. And it was a fine day in this House yesterday when we farewelled the Honourable Tony Ryle, because his record in health is just unbelievable. It is absolutely outstanding. Whether it's more hips, more knees, whether it's more cancer treatment faster, whether it's a higher level of immunisations, my colleagues are just listing them behind me because I just won't have time to mention them all. But the interesting thing is, and there's additional resource into hospitals. The Tokoroa Family Medical Centre has been upgraded into a health centre, more money into a significant upgrade into the Taupo Hospital, and these happening in regional hospitals up and down New Zealand. But the one thing that has really stood out, that has probably had the most feedback of anything, was our decision to fund GPs and prescriptions for those under 13. And that's what this government is focusing on, the things that actually hard-working New Zealanders value. So now if I look at the other thing that is significant, New Zealanders want to be safe in their homes and their communities. And this is a government, again, with the collaborative efforts in justice, police, corrections and courts. That very idea of actually saying what are the results we need to produce and breaking down the barriers in their departments and saying we are going to set these targets, we are measuring them, and, Mr. Speaker, we're achieving them. If you look at, for example, the total crime rate since June 2011 is down 16%. And 16. But actually the one that I think is more important, is youth crime. And that's down 30%. So these are figures, but actually, Mr. Speaker, I want those of us in the House to reflect on the number of people who are safer and who are not victims as a result of these results. Mr. Speaker, I want to make some thank yous before I finish. To my fellow whips, Tim McIndoe and Jamie Lee Ross. I have to say, managing a team of 59 stunning individuals hasn't been as challenging as people may think. They are highly committed, they are connected to their community, and they are dedicated. So it's really been a fantastic term of Parliament. But actually, one of the things that I do want to just state, Mr. Speaker, is the valedictory statements that were made by members retiring from our caucus. For Dr Cam Calder, John Hayes, Chris Okenvold, Colin King, Honourable Chris Tremaine, Honourable Kate Wilkinson, Dr Paul Hutchison, the Honourable Phil Heatley, Eric Roy, Shane Ardern and the Honourable Tony Ryle, and also in his novel way via Twitter, the Honourable Tauhenare. Each one of these people, Mr. Speaker, are remarkable people in their own right, and their contribution and service to New Zealand has been stunning. I want to thank all of the staff in this building and across the country. And I do want to recognise Grant Robertson's acknowledgement of what our electorate staff face on a day-to-day basis. Whether it is the team in the Parliamentary Service or the Office of the Clerk, our support staff, whether they are in cleaning, security, the gallery and chamber staff or in catering, I thank each and every one of you for the work that you do to support this House. Mr. Speaker, we are announcing the end of the 50th Parliament, and we look forward to the 51st Parliament. So it's quite appropriate that we're now 51 days to the election. Our athletes, our top athletes, are currently in Glasgow going for gold, and we've already brought home 34 medals, 11 of which are gold. 51 days until New Zealand decides who is their Prime Minister. I can tell you, Mr Speaker, National is going for gold, and it's game on.
Honourable members, as we close the 50th New Zealand Parliament, I want to thank you all for giving me the privilege of being its Speaker. Since I assumed the role